Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So on the agenda tonight, we have Jim Croce, and this is going to be coming from late 1972, maybe early 73, and this is going to be his performance of his track called Operator. So let's get Jim up on screen and see how he gets on.
Operator, but could you help me place this call? You see the number on the matchbook is old and faded. She's living in LA with my best old ex-friend Ray. Gosh, she said she knew well and sometimes hated. Isn't that the way they say it goes? Well, let's forget all that and give me the number if you can't find it, so I can call just to tell him I'm fine and to show. Overcome the blow, learn to take it well. Only wish my words could just convince myself that it just wasn't real, but that's not the way it feels. Operator, or could you help me place this call? 'Cause I can't read the number that you just gave me. There's something in my eyes, you know it happens every time. Think about the Lord that I thought would save me. Isn't that the way they say it goes? Well, let's forget all that and give me the number if you can't find it, so I can call just to tell him I'm fine and to show. Overcome the blow, learn to take it well. I only wish my words could just convince myself that it just wasn't real, but that's not the way it feels. No, 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 that's not the way it feels. Operator, oh, let's forget about this call. There's no one there I really wanted to talk to. So thank you for your time. Oh, you've been so much more than kind. You can keep the dime. Isn't that the way they say it goes? Well, let's forget all that and give me the number if you can't find it, so I can call just to tell him I'm fine and to show. Overcome the blow, learn to take it well. I only wish my words could just convince myself that it just wasn't real, but that's not the way it feels.
And there we have it. That was one of those videos I didn't really want to stop it halfway through because there's such a great flow, and when you're following the lyrics as well, you don't want to interrupt it either, because this is really a story. And I really do suggest that you go to where this video is that I'm watching it from, just because the lyrics are actually underneath the video as well, so you can follow along to really follow the story. And it is told so well. The way that Jim puts across his vocal is very much almost like a James Taylor kind of delivery in terms of telling a story and having those deeper lyrics, actually telling a story with a song, something that players used to do, and that somehow has got lost over the years, that you get these great artists. And by the way, let's not overlook the guitar work going on here, because Jim playing fingerstyle here, and just some of the little runs that are put together, they're so complicated in terms of when you're singing at the same time. It can really fly under the radar, because this will be one of those pieces that a lot of people will just be happy to get down just the guitar parts, let alone with the vocals over the top. What I love about this track in particular is the fact that in the chorus, it's really progressive in terms of the chord progression we've got going on, because normally you'd get a 3 or 4 chord sequence that's just repeated in a typical chorus, whereas here the way that Jim just really does weave through this melody in the chorus and does almost make a journey just out of the chorus section. Of course, the melody of the vocal is just fantastic over the top, and then when Maury comes in with the backing vocals as well, just gives it that extra depth and that extra creative element and sound. It sounds so cool when that comes in. But the two guitars working together, let's just take a little moment to realize that this is all live. This is a great performance of not only nailing everything on the guitar, but nailing everything vocally, nailing everything with the expression as well, with the vocals and with the guitar playing. Fantastic live performance here. Rewind it back to the beginning and have a listen to those lead lines that Maury is playing in the background. Just so cool the way he's throwing them in there. I always say that playing and singing at the same time doubles the difficulty. And when you are playing guitar, it has different grades of difficulty if you are applying vocals over the top. I always say that when you are just strumming out chords and then singing over the top, that's going to take not too much brain concentration and ability if you are well versed and you're well rehearsed in doing that. Once you start adding in fingerstyle to singing as well, that really does up the difficulty, because you're now having to play patterns, particular patterns with that right hand. Synchronization between right and left hand changes, hammer-ons and pull-offs, whilst delivering vocals. And that very much sits in that same bracket of playing riffs while singing. It really does up the difficulty to be able to deliver a great vocal whilst delivering some great acoustic guitar playing. Jim's vocal is so laid back, so cool. He has that talking quality to his voice that all the great storytellers have. It's like they are talking to you in tune. Jim was just one of those classic musicians who would just play for the love of it and just playing in cafes and pubs and clubs. And in 1968, he did actually sign with his wife, who was a musician as well. They signed to Capitol Records, and during that period in 1968, they actually covered 300,000 miles driving just to get round to gigs to promote the album that they'd recorded. And I think at that point they became disillusioned with the music industry and then decided to move to Pennsylvania out in the countryside. And when they were away from the business, Jim taught guitar and just did odd jobs to pay the rent. But then I think later on, Jim in 1970 decided that he wanted to get a meaningful job or be a meaningful member of society, at least in his head. That's what he wanted to do. So then they moved to Philadelphia, and that's when he started to get back into music a little bit, working at a radio station. And in 1970, through a mutual friend, Jim met Maury and they started to team up. And initially, it was actually Maury who was doing the singing and the playing, because he was a classically trained pianist, guitarist, and also a singer-songwriter. And it was Jim who was then playing the rhythm in the background. But as they then progressed, it kind of flipped over and Jim did the singing, as we can see in this video. And in 1972, with this setup, Jim actually signed a record deal, a 3-album deal with ABC Records. So in late 1972 and early 1973, that's where Jim did a lot of this TV work in order to promote the 2 albums that Jim had recorded with ABC Records. Something happened to Jim that happens to a lot of musicians, if not all musicians, who sign a deal with a record label. It is not a lottery win. You don't sign a $500,000 album deal and get that money in your bank account. It is a loan from the record company. Just think of the record company like a bank. They are giving you $500,000 to do everything. We're talking about recording, we're talking about transport, we're talking about promotion, we're talking about buying your instruments. You know, there is everything that you need to make your music popular in terms of getting it to lots of people, trying to get them to buy it. That comes out of that $500,000. So Once you've made the album that might cost $300,000, and that is actually quite cheap to make an album with all the production costs, you might have $200,000 left. That's all now thrown into promotion. So you're already $500,000 down. You've lost $500,000. The label, the bank, have given you that money and you've got none of it left. So now the record label has to make $500,000 worth of sales in order just to break even. So your music has got to sell $500,000 worth before you even start to see any money, because you only get paid once the bank have been paid back. Once that record label are now even, you can now start to make your percentage. And when I say you get your percentage, I mean the percentage that was agreed on the initial record deal. And some record deals nowadays are crazy in terms of the percentage. You can even have an 80-20 split for the record label, even 90-10 split for the record label. So you're only going to make 10% of all of those future profits after you've sold $500,000. It is really, I think, a misconception that people think signing a record deal is suddenly the end of everyone's worries and you can just relax and think, oh great, I'm going to be a millionaire. It doesn't work that way. Some of the numbers that are involved might be in the millions, but that's not going in your bank account. Let's get back to Jim, because I could talk about that music industry stuff all night. And Jim was just in that bracket of players who were immensely talented, great songwriters. And even though they were on TV doing shows like this, they weren't actually making any money. Any money that they were making was just going back to pay back that initial loan from the record company. So anyway, Jim is doing a lot of these performances with Maury on TV, late 72, early 73. And then unfortunately in September of 1973, when they were traveling from one show to another show, their plane crashed and Jim and Maury and 4 others actually died in the plane crash. Another really sad and tragic loss of life, and such talent to be taken so young. Jim was only 30 at the time that this plane crashed and he lost his life. So again, another really talented life cut short with Maury as well. I mean, the pilot was fully licensed and was a pilot, which sometimes doesn't happen in the other stories that you hear. But unfortunately, after takeoff, the plane caught the tip of a tree that was at the end of the runway, and that's what caused the plane to crash. According to the investigation, they say that that was the only tree that was anywhere near the runway. So it was surprising that the pilot just didn't try and avoid it. And it might have been the case that because Jim and Maury had actually just done a gig, maybe it was a little bit later, getting dark, and they said that maybe there's fog that made it not as visible as it should have been. Again, the pilot was fully qualified and everything, but it was later found that it was just pilot error. That was the reason for the crash. Jim actually wrote a letter to his wife before the plane crash. So unfortunately, she'd been notified that Jim had been in a crash, and then she received his letter. And in that letter, he stated that he was going to give up music and he just wanted to write stories and maybe get into writing scripts as a career as well. And I think that is just down to the fact that musicians aren't made for the music industry. And when I say that, I mean that Jim is just a classic musician, playing for the love of it, playing for the enjoyment, and also to give others enjoyment. They're not playing for the money, which is what the music industry is all about. As soon as you put your name and sign your name on a recording contract, you are now a puppet for that company. But what a great artist Jim Croce was, and Maury Muehleisen as well on that backup guitar, playing some great lead lines. Such great delivery by Jim, great harmonies, but a great songwriter. As I said, go and check out this original video. I'm going to put it in the description below so you guys can click on the link and read through the lyrics whilst you're watching the performance, because it really does add a whole new element to that. You really get the meaning of the song, and the story is just such a great story because it's so well put together and so well delivered by Jim. But thank you so much for suggesting this one for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one.